So this question is a paper 2 style question, and it's where there are several different topics kind of working together. So the first part is using trigonometry, and then the second part is using finance. So for the first part of the question, we have question A, and question A says that we need to find the area of this triangular shaped farm that we have. So it tells us the boundary lengths, it tells us that it's a triangular shaped farm, and we need to find the area and then give the answer as A times 10 to the k, which is standard form. So if we're trying to find the area of a triangle, we know that we need to use one of the angles and then the two sides next to it. So that's using the formula of half AB sine C. However, with the question that we don't have one of the angles. We don't have any of these, so we need to find one of the angles to be able to then use that rule of this one here. So the first thing we're going to need to do is to find one of those, and the easiest way is to use the cosine rule. So we're going to use cosine rule, and then using the formula book, that is c squared equals a squared plus b squared minus 2ab cosine c. So if we imagine, if I just sketch the triangle quite quickly, if we imagine that we have the 1400, 1500 and 1600, and we're going to try to find this side, this angle here as C, and we have A and B. So substituting that into my formula, I have C squared, which is 1500 squared, is equal to A squared, which is 1400, plus B squared minus 2AB cosine C. And that's the bit we're going to try and find. So I'm going to do this in the calculator. So if I go into math and numeric solver, then we have 1500 squared, and on this side 1400 squared plus 1600 squared, minus, and then it's 2 times 1400 times 1600, and all of that is times, and then it's cosine x, and that's the part we're trying to find. And we find that we have the angle of 59.6. So C is equal to 59.6 degrees. Once we know the angle, we can then substitute that in to find the area of our triangle. So the area of a triangle is half AB sine C. We now know the C, so it's just 1/2 of A times B times sine of the angle that I just found, which is 59.6. You should leave it as 59.6. It should not be rounded, because otherwise your answer would then be rounded as well. And that gives us 966,000 to 3 significant figures, and you could just type that into your calculator. Now it asks us to leave that as standard form. So as standard form, that is equal to 9.66 times 10, and that is to the power of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's times 10 to the power of 5. And that would then be your answer for the first part. So part B, it says that the farm has a barn and a farmhouse, and they're constructing a 2-meter wide path. It's on level ground between the farmhouse and the barn, and the barn is located 300 meters east and 200 meters north of the farmhouse. So for this one, let's try and draw that out. So we have the, is it the farmhouse? And it says 300 meters east and 200 meters north is the barn. Okay, so we have the farmhouse and then the barn. So if we're constructing a path between the two, it's this distance here. Okay, so we know that the path is 2 meters wide. We need to work out how long it is, and then the area of that path will be 2 meters times however long it is. So to find the length, we can use Pythagoras. So 300 squared plus 200 squared, square rooted. And again, I can type that into the calculator and I find it's 360.6 meters. So the length of the path is 2 times the 360.6 that I just worked out, and that is 721.11 meters squared, or to 3 significant figures, it's 721 meters squared. Okay, part C. So part C, we're then asked to find the cost of the path to the nearest dollar. So it costs 120 per square meter. So that means that I'm going to need to round it up to 722. So it needs rounding up because if I only buy 721, it's not enough. So 722 times 120. So 722 times 120, and that is 86,640. So I now know how much money, and it's in dollars. So let's put that in dollars. So I now know how much money it's going to cost me to build my path. And then in part D, we need to, we're taking out a loan, and then we need to repay that loan. Okay. If my loan is 1,750 at the end of each month, if it's for 5 years, but I'm doing it monthly, the length of time is 5 times 12, which is 60. So 60 payments are made in total. And each of those are 1,750. So 60 times 1,750 is 105,000, and we know that the actual cost is 86,640. So I'm trying to work out the difference between the two. So if I paid 105,000, but I actually only needed to pay 86,640,000, then I can work out the difference, which is then how much I've kind of ended up paying extra to be able to borrow that money up front. So that's 105,000 minus 86,640. So I've actually paid 18,000. That's a lot of money extra. So 360 too much. Okay. And then for so this was all part 1 of D. And then for part 2, we're told to find the interest rate of the loan. Okay, so this is where we're using the finance solver. So the number of payments is the 5 times 12, which is the 60. The interest rate is what I'm trying to find. The present value is the amount that it's cost me. So that's, what was it on mine? It was 86,640. So that's how much I kind of presently had. And then, the PMT, so the bank's given that to me, it's in the perspective of me, so I'm paying out, so it's a negative 1,750. The future value is 0 because eventually it'll be paid off. And then I have a CPY and a PPY, of which both are 12. Okay, so I'm now going into my finance solver. Apps, finance, TMV solver, and I'm just typing in all that information. So the interest rate is what I'm trying to find out. 86,640 and 12. There we go. The interest rate is what I'm then trying to find. So I'm now going to go to alpha and solve. What happened there? Did I not put the negative in? I did not put the negative in. The payment, I missed it out completely, is negative 1,750. There we go. So I'm trying to find the interest rate. And I can see there that the interest rate is 7.84. 7.84%. So I've been charged 7.84% for my interest rate on my loan. So working out the marks for this, the first question was out of 6 marks to find the area. So one of them is for the answer in standard form, and one is for the answer not in standard form. Then we have one for the method mark, which is the process of finding the area of a triangle. There is 2, so one for the method and one for correctly subbing in for using the cosine rule, and one for the answer of finding the internal angle. Now you might have found a different angle rather than that one. That is also okay. Maybe you labeled C as like this one here, for example. That is also fine. And then part B was 2 marks. One is for using and finding the length with the Pythagoras, and then the second is to find the area of the path. Part C was also 2 marks, so this is just for working out the cost. So this is 1 mark for the method and 1 mark for the answer. And then part D was 5 marks, so 2 of them were for the first part. 1 is for the answer and 1 is for the method of realizing that you needed to kind of multiply and find this and then subtract them. And then the second part of the question was 3 marks. 1 is obviously for the answer, and the other 2 are for correctly using the finance solver and for showing what the information would be.